As I was on my way to pick up my family for a short trip during the upcoming long weekend, I found myself wishing for a break from work. Just as the thought crossed my mind, my phone rang. Oh my God! What now? And to my dismay, it was Liam, my partner in solving crime. With a sinking feeling, I answered the call, bracing myself for bad news. Hey man, what's up? Trying to mask my apprehension. Hey, listen, I don't know where you are, but you need to come to Millwood Creek. A 16-year-old girl has gone missing, last seen near those woods, Liam informed me urgently. My heart sank at the news. Though I didn't want to entertain the thought, the image of my own daughter, the same age as the missing girl, flashed through my mind. Without hesitation, I knew I had to act swiftly. So I called up my wife and said, I can't make it now. An emergency situation came up, and I gotta go. She's super supportive and great. So, I took a U-turn and headed towards Millwood Creek. Before I reached there, I wanted to know some details about what we were going to deal with. I dialed Liam, who informed me, the mother of the 16-year-old said her daughter's name is Lisa, and she was home alone while she was away to get some groceries. Lisa hated being alone in the house because it's 100 years old. She always had this fear of being watched as she walked out of the door. She got scared and called me saying, I'm going to take a bus and go to my friend Abby's place. I was hesitant, but I said, it's fine. Take care, honey. Mama loves you. About an hour later, I received a call from Abby, who informed me that her father had seen Lisa running into the woods behind their house. He noticed some blood on the back of her white t-shirt. They quickly called 911 and also informed me. They went to search, but with no luck. Lisa had always mentioned seeing a ghostly figure resembling herself. She seemed perpetually scared, claiming it followed her wherever she went. We took her to doctors and therapists who suggested different medications and advised us to move out of the old house and take her away from her routine environment. She was about to move next month, and now this happened. That's what I heard from her, man. Come quick. All right, thanks. See you there. I reached the woods, and as you can imagine, people were searching for the 16-year-old, resembling a scene from a movie. Liam and I went in opposite directions. I ventured about 200 meters when, upon passing a large tree, I sensed that something wasn't right. I heard a cry, resembling that of a girl or an animal, and exclaimed, "Holy shit!" Instantly, fear gripped me, and I instinctively drew my gun, feeling as though someone or something was lurking behind me. Turning swiftly, I scanned my surroundings, hearing footsteps racing behind me. I began running in the direction of the sound. A peculiar figure seemed to shadow my movements, and as I glanced back, I was confronted by the ghostly image of a 16-year-old girl, pale with glowing eyes. I turned pale myself, overwhelmed by a sense of dread. Intuitively, I knew I had to flee or face dire consequences. Without understanding why, I sprinted away, my mind flooded with haunting images. I saw a girl, a blonde girl, running for her life. She and I were moving in unison. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black shape resembling a ghost from the movies, chasing me. I ran as fast as I could, but I couldn't outpace this ghostly figure. I knew I was going to die if I stayed there for another moment. Suddenly, she whirled around and screamed, putting a hand to my face. The ghostly figure brandished a cast-iron rod, poised to strike. Just as I screamed, the rod came down on us, and the visions abruptly stopped. I found myself standing at the end of the woods on the other side, tears streaming down my face. It felt as though she had died, or I had. Everything felt so real. I don't know what I experienced. I think what I saw was real. My mind isn't fooling me or something. There's a scratch on my face and a cut on my right hand. I was bleeding. It happened. I saw the same girl now coming towards me, floating at lightning speed or something of that sort. I'm quick on my feet and ran in the direction where I started. I finally reached where we started, and my friend Liam noticed me, came running towards me. Before I could say something, they found the girl dead on the other side of the woods. But how is that possible? I just saw her. She was chasing me. I was afraid that if I shared the info, people might ridicule me. I took care of some things at the crime scene and later returned home as I wasn't feeling well. During that evening in my room, I began hearing things, a child singing, a teenage girl grumbling, and a woman sobbing. These eerie sounds typically occurred around 1 a.m., after which my legs would start shaking uncontrollably. Additionally, I consistently heard a rushing noise, like air being blown through a hole, echoing throughout the room. Everywhere I went, I felt her presence looming over me. This continued for over a year until her last rites were performed. Since that day, the strange occurrences ceased. However, I still couldn't find answers to it all, and to this date, that terrible case still haunts me. If it feels like a movie or unreal, I don't know. But it happened with me. I've never believed in supernatural, but I do now. You never know until you experience something by yourself. 2 decades ago, I was in my mid-40s. My family and I had recently moved to a new town closer to the city where I was born. We have 1 son and 1 daughter, a happy family. 6 years prior, I was promoted to crime scene supervisor at a relatively young age, owing to my talent and ability to notice and solve things with ease. I was handed a peculiar case involving the disappearance of some local businessmen and prostitutes. As it was known to everyone, local mafia existed, and they do extort money from their family members or end people's lives when their demands were not met. Most of these disappearances went unreported because these local businessmen had associated and involved themselves with mafia and their activities including human trafficking, gambling, and many other things. When it came to the women, particularly in this field, had bad family history, involvement with members of mafia and criminals, driven by financial reasons or any other personal reasons. However, on this one particular occasion, a high-profile government official had been kidnapped. The news spread rapidly, igniting panic among many families and friends who reported their children and relatives missing. With an influx of calls and the media casting blame on the police department, we found ourselves under immense pressure. The department swiftly assembled a team to address this pressing case. Our investigation took numerous twists and turns, leading us to a crucial discovery. Witnesses had observed several men forcibly pushing a government official into a red car near the highway. Coincidentally, this same location yielded belongings of the missing individuals. To prevent further disappearances or abductions, we intensified our patrols on highways and streets. On a particular evening, my partner and I were patrolling along the highway. It was complete dark along the highway. We were looking at the roadside for any signs of trouble. Suddenly, my partner let out a scream, and our vehicle collided with something. The windshield shattered, obscuring our vision. There's this confusion. My partner and I struggled to regain our composure. Eventually, we got out of the car and began searching for the source of the impact. Despite our efforts, we found nothing. Whatever we had struck seemed to have vanished, perhaps rolling off the road and down the hill. However, our attention was drawn to the brake lights of a car approximately 100 meters away. Desperately, we shouted for help, but the vehicle drove away. So we returned with help from one of our colleagues. My partner and I didn't think much of the incident. We continued investigating the disappearances, but my partner began telling me about some strange visions he'd been experiencing lately. Dark figures appearing in his dreams, a constant feeling of being approached. I dismissed his claims and told him to take a break from everything. However, tragedy struck when my partner slipped in the bathtub, hitting his head on the tap and sustaining a serious injury. A week later, I started experiencing similar phenomena. I saw dark, shadowy figures while I was taking a shower, and later felt someone appearing next to me while lying in bed, felt hands around my neck, choking and suffocating me. My family began looking at me as though I have gone mad, and my children became scared of me. I heard strange screams and cries, which definitely didn't sound human. They were more like a mix of human and animal cries. The incident from that night haunted me constantly, and I kept having visions of it. For 2 months, I've been restless, unable to endure it any longer. I felt compelled to visit the same spot and investigate for myself. But as I approached, I realized I didn't have the courage left in me to do so. I felt as though I'm living in a nightmare. I can't take it anymore. That night, my father went to take a bath, so he turned on the water and filled the bathtub. 2 hours passed. We didn't hear anything from him. We panicked and busted the door open to find that my father was no longer with us. He had mysteriously drowned in the bathtub, which was unfathomable to us. However, Through his habit of writing in his diary, we learned about the events that led to his demise. Somehow my father figured out he and his partner on that fateful night hit and killed a woman. The visions he had were those of the same woman. Recently, while I was out of town, my friend and his family purchased a house. Despite its unassuming appearance, this particular house, located close to my own, conceals some deeply unsettling secrets, hinting at a tragic past. There's an eerie aura surrounding this house, as if it carries an ominous message. Get the F out! If the walls could speak, they would undoubtedly be screaming it. The previous owners of the house endured horrific tragedies during their occupancy. One family suffered the heartbreaking loss of 2 young children who drowned in the backyard pool. Another family mourned the passing of their 19-year-old son due to leukemia. During a period when the house was unoccupied, my uncle's daughter Lisa and her special needs friend Jenna used to walk to the empty house and back, accompanied by their parents. Lisa often claimed to spot Ben and Rob, although those children were no longer alive. Many neighbors also reported seeing them. However, as the girls approached the house, a tree branch suddenly fell, narrowly missing them. Needless to say, they were forbidden from going anywhere near that house again. My uncle lived for many years in the same area and was well aware of the tragic history associated with the house. About 5 years ago, my cousin Emma and her husband Matt decided to purchase this particular house, fully aware of its dark history. They moved in with their 3 children, determined to create happy memories and break the curse, so to speak. I suppose the relatively low price of the house played a significant role in their decision. After settling in, Emma and her family began experiencing strange phenomena, indicating that they were not alone in the house. One incident in particular alarmed them enough to seek help from a priest to bless the home. One day, while the kids were at school and her husband was at work, Emma heard a child call out, "Mommy, Mommy." Investigating the source of the sound, she went downstairs and discovered a child's handprint on the mirror, which she swears was not there before. Their next step was to call in a medium who promptly identified a bad presence residing within the walls. Describing this intruder, whom they dubbed Hector, the medium suggested his intentions were nefarious. During the investigation, the medium claimed to hear a woman screaming and asked if Emma and Matt heard it too, which they did not. One of their dogs, who slept in Emma's bedroom, often cried while staring at the wall. The thought of such activity occurring in their little girl's room would have been extremely unsettling for them. A couple of months ago, after being out all day, Emma came home to find a dried-up, bloody handprint on Hector's wall. As a crime scene specialist, and with Matt being a police officer, we thoroughly searched the entire house for any signs of intrusion, but found none. Nevertheless, we called in other police officers to report the incident. Despite their thorough search, nothing else was found out of place that would indicate an invasion of any kind. Personally, I considered it a blatant threat delivered from the world beyond. Holy crow! To me, this was an ominous warning. A bloody handprint on the wall? If that doesn't scream, "Get out," I don't know what does. Soon after, Emma and Matt fell sick, vomiting blood, and their children began feeling unwell. Teachers reported that the kids were behaving oddly with other children in school. We quickly found another property and moved Emma and Matt out of that house. Eventually, they recovered and regained their health. Now, my friend and his family have moved in. It's been 2 weeks. He called me to invite me to their housewarming, and when I inquired about their new home, to my horror, he revealed they had chosen the same house due to its affordability. I recounted the history of the house, but to my disbelief, he brushed off my words, assuming I simply had an eye for that property. Upon my return, my wife and I visited them for dinner. That same night, their pet dog, Rizzo, ran out and was hit by a car in front of the house, tragically passing away. Within a week, my friend lost his job. Now the house sits empty with a "for sale" sign out front. To our shock, there is now a bloody handprint present on the sign. A few years back, I was assigned to a case where 4 family members, 2 adults and 2 children, were brutally murdered in their house, attacked with a machete, and the children were shot. It was a small, quiet, yet creepy house. When I walked in, I witnessed the horrifying scene and could imagine what those poor souls might have endured. Next to the house, there was a cemetery where the rest of the family's ancestors were buried. Upon entering, I immediately felt nauseous at the gruesome scene. The family had been murdered while they were asleep. As the other officials were talking to me, I saw a shadow that looked like a woman standing in the kitchen, observing us. My colleague Richie went outside to check something, and a few minutes after he did, we started hearing footsteps upstairs. I also heard what sounded like a lady moaning. My other assistants ran out of the house, and a few seconds later, they came back in with Richie, asking what had happened. We told him, so we decided to go upstairs to check it out. While up there, we entered the children's room. We stayed in there for a few minutes, scanning the room. The beds were painted red with blood smeared on the walls, and nothing happened. We didn't hear any other sounds. My assistant and Richie decided to go into the attic, where a small child's cry was coming from, even though there were no other children present. Everything felt so scary and strange. In the attic, I started hearing children whispering. It sounded like a little girl and a little boy. Richie looked at me and asked what was wrong. I told him, so we went back into the children's room. I started asking questions like what their names were, and a little boy told me his name was Matt. It felt like those appearances of the children talking to me were real, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I wanted to go and touch them. They extended their hands to me. Right when I was about to touch them, Richie shouted at me, startling me, and I was scared as hell. He shouted at me, asking who I was talking to. Not sure what was happening to me, but I told him everything. He mentioned it's all an illusion that our minds are forcing on us. Needing a break, I was heading out for a smoke. At the door entrance, I saw the kids pointing me in a direction. I looked in that direction and saw the couple standing in their bloody clothes. I felt sick to my stomach, and I just rushed out of the house, taking a smoke. I couldn't shake the sight of those couples and children. They were saying something, but I couldn't understand anything anymore. It's taking a toll on my job and mental health. My boss couldn't see me in this position and assigned another officer to this case. I only inquire about the updates on the case, help with anything that comes up, and not much more. I'm not sure if it was my mind playing tricks on me or if it's just something supernatural.